We are here at the Museum of the City of New York, where a lot of the history of New York City is portrayed, and we are joined by Peter Georgescu, former head of Young and Rubicam, who himself is part of that history. So, Peter, it's great to be with you.
David, what a thrill. Delighted to be with you.
So, take us back to when you came to New York and made some history in 1954.
Oh, my goodness. Well, my story starts thousands of miles from here in Romania. Born of Romanian parents, just at the eve of the Second World War. So my parents smelled that it was going to be trouble in the capital, so they shipped my brother, 5 years old, and I to Transylvania with my mother's parents, aging grandparents, wonderful people. And so the Second World War was with my grandparents in Romania. And we survived the war, and it wasn't pleasant, but it wasn't horrific. And so my father, unfortunately, was put in prison by the Germans because he worked for an American company, Exxon, and in the oil fields. And the Germans, of course, took an ally guy and threw him into prison. They almost killed him, but then the president of Romania decided that he better get some friends on the other side. What if the Germans don't win the war? So he literally faced the firing squad, and they gave him a last-minute reprieve. Close. But anyway, he worked for they didn't know that, he worked for the OSS from prison. That's another story. So we reunited as a family in '46 in Romania. My brother, the organic family. I learned how to bike from my father. And that was actually the longest time, a year, that I've ever spent with my parents. What happened was, at the beginning of '49, in January, my mother and father came to New York for a general manager's meeting at 30 Rock here in New York City.
For Exxon?
For Exxon, worldwide managers meeting. It was at that time that the communists took over Romania. The Iron Curtain comes down. And little old me, at that time was just over 7 years old, was there at the birth of communism. One of the most powerful autocracy that the world has ever seen. And Romania was an ugly one. It has a reputation that it was not so bad. It was the worst. 300,000 people were killed. And so then shortly thereafter, they arrested my brother, myself, and my grandmother. We were thrown close to the Russian border in a small town called Boroshani. And that's how we see the beginnings of what do you do. People are fungible. Do you use people to do things? And I was a witness to what I later learned to understand was totalitarianism, autocracy. And we were pawns. I never knew why they kept us alive. But we became pawns, as I'll mention in a minute. But anyway, in this little town, we got up at 6 o'clock in the morning, went to work, 6 days a week, 10 hours a day. Sundays you slept.
And you were how old?
And I was 10 years old. No books, no learning, no nothing. You went to work 6 days a week, you slept on Sundays. That was life. And there was no hope. There was no discussion between us, my brother and I, about, hey, how is it going to be when we grow old, or when we grow up, or nothing. And then in New York, they tried to get my father to spy for them. And that's why they had kept us alive, to be the bait. Want to see your children alive again? You're going to spy for us. My father went home from the office where he met with this guy, and my mother and he talked. The next morning, he went to the FBI and said, this is what happened, what do I do? They say, become a double agent. My father said, I've seen that play, it doesn't work well. Sooner or later, they'll kill the kids anyway. What do we do? Eventually, they said, go public. The Russians wanted the world to think that communism is friendly and nice and warm and fuzzy. And so maybe they'll tell the Romanians they can kill the kids. So that's what they did. Every little town in America had a story of the blackmail of parents about their kids in Romania. A wonderful woman from Ohio, Frances Payne Bolton. She took over her husband's seat. She was the only woman in Congress. Not only that, she was head of the Congressional Foreign Relations Committee in Congress. She had met Stalin, she knew this story, calls out my father, said, I'll get you boys out of Romania. Not a long story, but at the end of the day, she calls her friend Eisenhower, whom she helped elect as president. So she had some chits on Ike. We got traded for a bunch of Russian spies.
So the President of the United States intervened on
Yes.
your behalf to get you out of Romania.
And so he did. And I always wanted to know, why did Francis Bolton do that? Called my dad and then did it. People in my life, many people are my guardian angels. I have a Hall of Fame of guardian angels. It's long. I am who I am, importantly, because I got a lot of help along the way. And it was a different time. And you know, America was a different country. There was compassion, there was caring, there was support. When I landed at Idlewild, it was awesome. You know, I've never seen, I mean, we got off the plane and there were the cameras, there were hundreds of reporters and television people and all the rest of it. And I didn't have a tie. And so they asked me, one of the reporters said, you're not wearing a tie. He said, well, what is a tie? I didn't know what the hell it was about. I got over 1,000 ties in the mail. This is America. People cared, people understood. The principal of Exeter Academy in New Hampshire, a damn good high school, called down my father, I'll keep a place for your son. My parents, I mean, I can't imagine my mother now thinking back after 8 years of being separated from her children. She agrees to have the baby, but I was not a baby. I was a man by then, after what I went through. There I was in high school. I went there as a sophomore because he asked me, the principal asked me, what grade did I want to be in? I didn't know what grade meant. I said, I want to be with boys my own age. That's the only thing that came to my mind. He said, threw up his hand and said, what difference? You will be a sophomore. So I went to Exeter for 3 years. Then I was fine. I got into Princeton.
Well,
then
Princeton and
Stanford Business
better
School,
than
blah,
fine.
blah, blah. And the rest of the story is an American story. It's kind of an educated American story.